it's like so vain of
Boom.
me, literally.
Oh, no.
Like I'm on the podcast that is my favorite podcast. How vain. And you better believe I'm going to listen to this one.
Wait, I hit record. I love you. Well, first of all, let me just say, do you know how much that means to me? Like that you really, because, I mean, you are someone, you're my girl. I love you. I respect you. I mean, but we're all busy. We're all full in life. Your life is full on. So who you really pay attention to, you could love someone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be tuning into all of their work or whatever, but it means a lot to me that you tune into Black Belt Beauty Radio and value it. It means so much, honestly.
No, but that is because you're that good, right? I don't say it to blow smoke up your ass. I literally, like you said, I'm so freaking busy. I don't listen to all my husband's podcasts. Now, obviously, I don't listen to all of yours. I just don't get a chance to. But the truth is that when I have a certain amount of time limited, I'm like, how am I going to spend it? As you know, I spent 8 freaking years doing something, being a housewife, being somebody that I didn't want to be. And so for me, I don't want to spend 8 years and 1 minute doing something that doesn't fill me up. And so I honestly don't say that to blow smoke up your ass. I think you're an incredible host. I think that you do a beautiful job. And here I'm just like, gushing about you, but like, you do such a freaking great job of bringing the best out in people and then also putting your 2 cents in, and your perspective, the way you explain things is so digestibly high level. And by that, I mean, is that to me, there's a fine line. Some of my husband's content I literally can't listen to because I don't understand what he's saying, like a lot. And I'm like, babe, I need layman's terms, but I don't want layman's terms where it becomes so simplistic that it doesn't impact me. And so you do this gorgeous, beautiful balance, and balance isn't often a word I use, but you do this beautiful balance of being very intellectually in depth in the conversation, but also actually being emotionally in depth, and kind of bringing those 2 things together that allows me to codify what is being said and take it and use it in my own life. That's my jam. And so if I have time, whenever I've got a guest on, I'm always like, please hopefully Roxy's interviewed them, because I just want an excuse to like listen to you. But look, I really think that all your audience right now is probably agreeing with me, because that is what makes you so freaking unique and special. So that's why I was kind of joking at the beginning that if I ever listen to a podcast, yours is one of the first that I go to. Yours, Joe Rogan's, and my husband's. Those are the 3 of podcasts that I will listen to on a regular. And then and so the fact that like now I'm on your podcast, I was just saying, it's like, is it Inception? Is it a little like egotistical? I'm not quite sure what this is. Well, but I'm gonna listen to it.
Okay, a couple things. First of all, I love you and I appreciate every word, and real is real. We love real, and so I know it's never a blowing smoke up my ass, and that's why it also means so much more to me. But also for those who aren't aware yet, this is round 2 with you, and I'm so excited about this. And now we have video. And the third thing I wanted to say is I'm not trying to be lazy, but I can literally echo everything that you just said right back to you, girl, because I feel the same way about you and your podcast. I mean, that's why anytime you and I connect, I mean, just in our own, whether it's a phone call or, it's just the conversation is that blend of where it's like high level thinking, it's emotional, but I do feel like we're able to communicate even just with each other in a way where we can really absorb and digest, what we are exchanging with each other. So I do want to say that, we're recording this at the very end of this crazy ass year 2020, but this episode is going to air at the very beginning of 2021, and that was so done on purpose, because when I think about starting the year strong and powerful, and I'm like, well, who is that guest? I'm like, it's Lisa,
So when you're having them on?
No, it's just like I mean, literally. So, and it's a great segue into where I really want to start with you is, you are, well, let me back this up. So I was going to say you are a strong woman, and we're going to go back there because that is absolutely a fact. But I want to tell you something about this morning that happened. So, I have a relationship with my future self, my highest self, my muse,
Mhm.
right? And in meditation every day, she offers me this word slash energy to lead my day with. And the word today was strong. And it was so
Ah.
interesting because, I go on my morning walk afterwards, and like the word showed up in three different like social media or wherever I was looking, and it actually showed up on my walk too. There was like some stones that somebody had done art on, and one of them said be strong. And it's just like the power of a focused, aligned mind, and it just feels so mystical and lovely. But all that to say, I really do want to talk about being a strong woman. You are, without a doubt, the ultra representation of a strong woman. And I know that that's not just me saying that as your girl, but that is literally how you are perceived from. I mean, I know I'm not in everybody's mind, but like it's just undeniable. You exude it. And I would like you to explain like what does a strong woman represent to you? Like what are the characteristics of a strong woman? And in your own life, like what makes you feel strong? Some examples around that.
Yeah, God. So, because you're such a good friend of mine, actually has come at a really perfect time because I don't know. Yeah, I think I would have been honest, but it just so happens 3 minutes before we joined this call to do this, I was in tears.
Oh.
Now, just to give you an idea, I never cry ever. I've maybe cried this year 4 times.
Mm.
Like I'm and look, I can actually take you back on why I'm like that. I've done a lot of, self-reflection. Why do I think of it as weakness? Because I know it isn't weakness. So why do
Mhm.
I still feel it, even though I know better? And I just, kind of break it down into my childhood and that my mom, when my parents got divorced, I would walk into the room and my mom would always wipe her tears if she saw me walk in the room. And I'd always say to
Mm.
my mom, is everything okay? She's like, of course it is. Why are you asking? As if nothing happened. And so I just learn over time that women don't show tears.
Mhm.
And so the reason why, so I have almost trained myself to not allow myself to be teary. Now I'm in conflict with this. I don't know if that's a good strategy or not. And I'm still in my 40s. I'm in my 40s and I still don't have an answer, because here's the thing. Sometimes it absolutely serves me. Sometimes for me to appear strong and show up strong, I have to tell myself, you better freaking step yourself
Mhm.
up. Can I swear on this? I can't remember if I can. Okay, good. I'm just
Girl.
making sure. I know, just making sure.
I'm like,
But literally, in those moments, I'll be like, don't you be a fucking pussy. Get
yeah.
your shit together, Lisa. And it's not that I'm judging other people. I need to make that clear. It is just
Mhm.
I have trained myself on what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And so sometimes giving myself that hard talk is absolutely what I need to show up strong.
Mhm.
Now, there's sometimes where literally 5 minutes before this call, think just so much has been weighing on me. I just had some phone calls with my family, so there's some things going, and so it really has broken my heart.
Yeah.
And normally, if it's just me, right, if it's my digestion, my health, my own mindset, I can fucking kick myself in the ass.
Mhm.
But when it's my family, honestly, I literally 5 minutes ago, I was like, my heart feels broken right now, and I haven't yet found that kicking myself up the arse works when my heart is broken. So in those instances, I've trained myself that to be strong means to let it out. And so for me to be able to show up here and be that person that can really articulate these types of things, I literally said to myself before this, Lisa, you're going to have to let it out. Because if you get on the court and you haven't let it out, if you haven't processed it, then I'm now coming on almost like a bubbling idiot. And I'm not saying that to put myself down. Like, it's because I speak so I can understand, not so I can be understood. So for me, I need to speak out loud so that I can understand what I'm going through, so then I can actually vocalize it and come up with a solution. So I was like, I don't want to come on this podcast and just talk words. I really want it to be impactful and be in real time and authentic. So I said to myself before, you have to let this out so that you can process it, so that if she asks you anything that that allows you to be honest in this situation, I now can articulate it clearly. So going back to how I am strong, it all depends on the situation and knowing how to act in that occasion. And that takes time. That takes practice, right? It's like jujitsu, where it's like, someone can tell you a move, but until you get in the move and you practice it and you practice it, and someone comes at you from a different angle, to the right, well, shit, I only practice to the left. And it's like, that, like Bruce Lee, like, you got to do so much that no longer you think kick, you just kick. And so I'm at the stage where I've been training that when it came down to it a few minutes before this call, I knew what I had to do, how to put my mind right so that I could come on this call and be able to articulate it. So it takes freaking practice. It takes time. If you want to be strong, you have to look at where you're weak. You have to assess where you're weak, and you have to do it with no judgment. Because if you look at your weakness and then judge yourself, you're never going to improve. You're only going to feel bad about yourself that you're weak in that area.
Oh, girl.
So sorry, like tears may have worked.
There is so much there. It's just like, oh, I love you so much. I mean, I was wondering if you would, upon asking you that question, if vulnerability would have come into your answer. And because I know in my life, like I say this all the time, the reason why I am so powerfully strong is because of how soft I am. Literally, it's because of my softness that because it's that self-compassion, vulnerability piece that allows me to be pliable, malleable, and really to be agile, right? And what I love so much, I mean, so much you just said is so powerful, literally. One thing that I do want to tease out there that I think is so, so important, and it's something I wanted to talk to you about almost like in another context, but I got to pull it in it because it's too perfect. But the level of self-honesty in that moment is really incredible, because it's like this. If you would have just been like, nope, can't cry. Like, I just got to go, first of all, you're not being honest with yourself. Like, there was an emotion that you were experiencing that was so powerful, and to put up a wall and not allow yourself to just like move through the emotion. You didn't become the emotion, you moved through it. And that was it took a lot of honesty to do that. Whereas like, if you were not doing that, you would have put up resistance, and then maybe you wouldn't feel as fucking badass as you are right now in this moment, and the piece that I wanted to talk about, in a kind of another way, but really geared towards you more, is that on one of your posts, you had put, there's a quote by somebody else that says, hurt me with the truth, but don't comfort me with a lie. And you were framing it. You gave the example of a story with Tom in your relationship, right? And I thought that was so dope and so powerful. But what I wanted to flip that on you, because while that is so true in your relationship, it's the same thing, like that relationship with yourself, like, be honest with me, like be honest with yourself, even if it's going to hurt, but just don't lie. And so to pull it right back to where we were, the lie would have been, no, I'm not going to let myself feel this. I'm going to, you know what I mean? And I'm just going to pretend and move forward. So, yeah.
Well, the thing with that, girl, is I tried it. Like I'm so the person of like, what works? What's your goal? How do you get there? What works? And so it's not out of like, my instinct is to absolutely put the wall up. I did that in my teenage years. I remember the very first time where I was like, is this weird? My great uncle died and I was like 16, and my entire Greek family, I'm Greek, so like, even though it's great uncle, there's just so many people. And I look around in the church, and it was the very first person in my life that had really passed away that I remember very clearly. And I remember looking around, and all the women were in tears, from, my mom to my aunts, like all these women that I had seen as being super freaking strong. Everyone broke. And I remember in that moment, I looked around and I was like, who's going to be strong for them? Like, if everyone's breaking, who's going to be strong? And I remember not crying. And I remember telling myself in that moment, don't cry, because everyone needs someone strong. Now, what I didn't realize is I was wiring my brain to be that person. Right. So what ended up happening is that's to the age of 16, at the age of 26, when now I have a problem with crying and Tom thinks I'm dead inside. Like, he actually used to joke. He's like, yeah, she's dead inside. And it was because I wouldn't cry. And over time, I started to realize he's seeing me as not having emotions, but that's not true. I just keep it in. Then I started to see that my personality was the person that went from 0 to 100. And so then I'm like, okay, going back to what serves you, what serves your goal, and none of that ended up serving me. I was feeling worse and worse by keeping it in. So I was like, okay, if I feel worse and worse, how do I navigate this? And over time, I've just assessed myself. So for instance, I still don't, as much as I can possibly, I don't allow myself to cry in front of Tom if we're having an argument. So if I'm upset over something else, I don't mind. But if me and him are disagreeing and I feel teary, I still now, and this is very conscious of me. This isn't by accident. This isn't because like I feel ashamed. This is very conscious of me. I walk away. And he used to be like, babe, why are you walking away when you're crying? Like, and I said, look, I understand the power of tears. Like, I just do. I understand what my husband's going to feel if he sees me in tears. So what's that going to do? Is going to make him feel badly about it. So he may then, let's say he's annoyed with me or upset with me or frustrated with me, or there's an issue in the relationship. And now I cry, and now he feels badly about saying it to me, being honest. And now he either takes it back or makes me feel better. Do you think we've actually resolved the problem in the first place? No. Because now we've just been like, oh, well, it's gotten too heated. She's too upset. Let's just like cuddle and make it okay. But that doesn't lead into solving the problem. So I have just now explained to him, babe, I love you so much. But when I am teary, I don't want you to apologize just to make the relationship in this moment better. It's like short-term satisfaction with long-term satisfaction, right? And I think we've even spoke about this. Short-term satisfaction to me is a bowl of ice cream. Oh man, that shit tastes good. Like, but long-term goals, if I want to live forever, or at least 150, that bowl of ice cream isn't going to do me a service. So I assess my short-term goals with my long-term goals, and then how I get there. So my long-term goal with my husband is to absolutely resolve problems. And if I know the power of tears, I don't want that to skew it. I don't want that to influence the way we handle the discussion. And so what I do is I may get upset and I may say, babe, I just need space. Let me, like breathe or go off. And then I come back and I call it emotionally sober. So I come back emotionally sober so that we can actually talk about the issue at hand. So he can say the truth to me without me being defensive, because we all know that freaking happens, right? When you're emotional, someone says something to you, it's like, well, why are you getting like this? And then forget it. Now the argument isn't about the argument. It's about the fact that they said this to you and now you're really freaking upset. So I just assessed what serves us, what serves our relationship in the long run. And the truth is, crying in an argument with my husband, I haven't seen yet. And people are going to push back and people are going to freaking hate me. Do what serves you. But I have not seen it work in my relationship. And so I've just sidelined it. But it's not that I sidelined crying. It's that I assess how I handle it. Like, I did this post, and I'm just going to waffle now a bit. But I did this post that is... a quote, you're too sensitive. And then it's something like, is what people say when they don't want to admit that they've been in the wrong or something. Now, here's the truth. People do throw out you're too sensitive as a way to shut you down, like invalidate your feelings. 100% I agree with that. But also sometimes I am too sensitive. And I go, what is the reputation I want with the people around me? Do I want Tom to always assume I'm too sensitive? And that when I'm not, he still assumes it, right? Because you earn a reputation. Or do I want to earn a reputation that Lisa isn't sensitive? So if she cries, if she says, hey, you really hurt my feelings, it carries freaking weight.
Oh yeah. I mean, Lisa, you're just throwing bombs over here, girl. I'm like, woo. I mean, first of all, so true. And again, there's a lot to pull on. One thing I want to say right out the gate is that, again, here is a perfect example of the level of self-honesty, for you to be able to do that introspective work so honestly is really powerful. Now let's talk about the introspective work. I mean, I always say this to you, like, you're the queen of strategy to me. Like you are the queen of strategy, which is such a powerful
Thank you,
skill.
guys.
Like, obviously as a, entrepreneur, but like just in life, just to be able to strategize is it's really sexy to me, So I would, to me, I feel like to be a strong strategist, and you just exuded this so powerfully. It's like this level of self-awareness that you have is incredible. I want to know how, because it's like a big question when people ask me this, it's a big question, but I know that you're really good with tactics as well. Like where has this self-awareness piece been developed in you? Like what can you attribute to this self-aware? I mean, are there tools like, for me, journaling has been a big tool, but I don't know for you, but you have such a strong ability to go in and go, wait, hold on, is crying good? Like that inquiry is really powerful. So I don't know if you have any. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't necessarily journal, but I ask myself a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't make any assumptions. Like honestly, like I mentioned earlier, I spent 8 years being a housewife. And again, there's nothing freaking wrong with being a housewife. If that's your dream, you should freaking go for it. It's just I didn't want to be, and I let my life just happen to me. So I was allowing external forces, my belief system of a traditional Greek woman, like all these things were creating a life that I didn't feel like I was having control over. Now, the truth is, I absolutely had control over it. I just didn't realize it. And I don't know if I've already said this to you, but one of my things that have become one of my favorite quotes is the David Foster Wallace quote, where it's this story where you've got the big fish swimming along. And one big fish is swimming, you've got two little other fish swimming in the other direction. The big fish goes to the little fish. Hey, fellas, how's the water? Keeps swimming. Little fish turn around to the other little fish and goes, what the hell is water? And the point being is that sometimes you are surrounded by it that you don't even realize it exists. So belief system is water. You are sometimes given a belief system through your childhood, through what you're taught, through what your parents have told you, through the movies, through your own experiences, where you have a bucket of assumptions that you don't challenge. And that was how I lived 8 years of my life doing something that wasn't really what I wanted, because there was so many assumptions in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just say, from now on, shed all assumptions and just ask yourself, what do you want in life? What do you want? What is that goal? So if it's a relationship, my goal is to be married happily, not just married, because that's like how many people are unhappily married. So my goal in my relationship is to be happily married to the day I die. That is a very clear goal. That is not wishy-washy. That is very clear. So now I go, what is a no bullshit way to get there? And then how do I do it? Am I willing to do it? Because that's the thing. We don't have to be willing to do it. So take a skill set, whether it's my business. Okay, I want to build impact theory. How am I going to get there? Am I willing to do it? Do I want to be a mother? What does that entail? Am I willing to do it? Like I just shed. So again, I thought I was going to have 4 kids. And once I started to shed all assumptions of being a traditional wife as a traditional mother, I started to say, okay, what would life look like? Shed all assumptions. What would life look like if I was doing what I love every day? So at the time it was building Quest and being a mother. What does an average Wednesday look like? And so I would go, okay, if I was a mother and an entrepreneur, then I would wake up at 5. And I literally wrote out a schedule in my mind of I would be, okay, Tom has said that he doesn't want to wake up between Monday and Friday because he's going to be all in on work, which means if the baby wakes up in the middle of the night, that means that I'm going to get up. Okay, so I love working out. So when would I actually be able to have to work out? Well, what would I do with the baby? Like I literally just like break down the realities of what an average freaking Wednesday would look like. And then I go, well, hang on a minute, this thing, Quest, that I'm building, that I'm loving, when would I have time to do that? All right, so I wouldn't have time, so maybe I get a nanny. Do I want a nanny to bring up my children? No. And so I literally just keep breaking that, ask myself a question, and then come to a conclusion. And then with that conclusion, then you go, am I willing to? So having a business, being a mother, what is the no bullshit? I would need help. I would need a nanny. No judgment, literally no judgment on anyone for that. But I was like, no, I'd rather not have children. For me, it's just what's right for me.
Yeah.
I'd rather not have children and have a full-time life of extreme excitement with what I do on my business side, than be torn every single day and feel guilty, because I know I know myself well enough, that I'm not at home with the kid, that someone else is bringing up the kid. And then when I'm at home with the kid, I really worry I would be resentful because I love what I fucking do. So that's how I ended up coming to the decision of, yeah, I don't want children. But that was a year of asking myself questions, of saying, okay, well, if I don't have kids now, what's the no bullshit in the future? I'm not getting any younger. My ovaries just keep aging. So then I go, okay. And I keep playing the scenario. So I'm like, okay, I've made a decision to not have kids now. But what does that look like in 5 years? What does that look like in 10 years? What if Tom dies? What if Tom dies in 10 years? So now I'm 50. I don't have the light of my life is no longer with us. And I've decided to not have children. Will I regret it? Like I ask myself those hard questions. And so I go, okay, there's a possibility I will regret it. All right, Lisa. So what would you do differently? Maybe I'd freeze my eggs. Then it gives me an option. Okay, so let's look into freezing your eggs. Once I started looking into freezing your eggs, you have to take injections. You have to do like all these hormone things.
Yep.
What do we know about my health? My health is so out of whack.
Right.
So then I start to go, okay, now you've got a choice. You either keep going, risk your health even more by having all these hormone injections and stuff just to get ovaries for a kid you don't even know you want.
Right.
And so as you can see, like I won't keep going down that road,
no,
but that's how I unpeel the onion. Like keep peeling. And then I came to the conclusion that I don't want to make a decision now out of fear of regretting it in the future. So having kids.
No, it's so good. It's so good. And so it's like the power of questions, which I love and I implement in my own life. It's literally, I don't like lazy thinking. I don't like blanket statements. Like I'm always like, what's the root cause? Like literally the same, like I love integrative health because we're looking at the root cause of things, right? And I feel that one thing that's so powerful to point out about everything, that I love the illustration because I actually do think that there's so much power in the way that you just laid it out. It was very visual to me anyways. But the piece that's really powerful too is that your what ifs, they're not they're not pushing you into a fear-based decision. That's really important because we know that what if can be a very like fear-based situation. And then, and then you're not really operating from a powerful, aligned, intuitive place. You're operating, what if this goes wrong? Okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to start the business. So one day, years ago, I was in an airport with Carrie. I'll never forget this. I was just writing, we're getting ready to board a plane. And these words came to me and they're ringing through my mind as you're saying your story. But the words were, we cannot judge and learn at the same time.
Oh,
It's like, it's so true. It's so simple and crispy. I love little crispy things like when I download them, we cannot judge and learn at the same time. So if you are, listen, you are such a growth mindset queen. And when we think about the growth mindset is doing that as a constant. It is that constant self-inquiry. It's honest and it's the peeling back the onion, the way that you just beautifully, expressed over here. But it's also, if you were to start judging a theory, an idea, like you've concluded. That's why when you judge, you've like concluded. And if you've concluded, then where are you learning? You're not learning anymore, right? So I love, and I think it's so important to highlight that in your badass strategic process of like self-inquiry and questions, you are not operating, you're allowing your brain, your imagination, your logic to just allow, like you go on an adventure, it seems like a cerebral adventure where you can investigate from a place of curiosity and not, some kind of confined, I'm afraid, what if situation.
yeah, girl, you know what? It never really hit me like that until you said it, but you're 100% right. And I think it's because I used to. Like, I absolutely came from a fear-based place. And so because of that, I wouldn't ask myself the questions because I didn't want to know the answers. But what ends up happening? Shit then goes wrong, and then you end up finding yourself in a situation that you're like, oh my God, I didn't even predict this. I didn't even think through it. And I was
Right.
just like, Lisa, what's worse? The fear that you initiate with,
Mhm.
or the once you get there, you're like, oh shit, I've been blindsided. And I just go, what's the worst case scenario? And the blindsided to me is way worse than the initial fear. And that all started with quest. Like my husband, God bless that man, he's so like audacious in his goals and dreams that when he came home and he was like, all right, me and my business partners, we want to start a protein bar company. He doesn't know anything about protein bars, none of us do, right? But it was like, yeah, sure, like let's just do it. But in that moment, because I'd already spent 8 years of my life, and that was kind of the catalyst of me making a change in my life, was quest. But I'd already spent 8 years of my life just, again, letting life control me instead of me taking the reins. And so when he came home with this, I had had enough. And that was when, because I had said to him, I'm so miserable, you're just chasing money, I'm sitting at home waiting, you're so unhappy, you're not the man that like I fell in love with, you don't have the joy in your heart anymore, I don't give a shit about money, I don't give a shit about anything, all I want is my husband back, please go in, quit the, so he had built up a couple of $1 million in shares in this company. And I was like, I don't care about the money, give it back. If you don't cross the finish line, you don't deserve it, in my opinion. We weren't willing to cross the finish line. So I was like, but I don't care, I just want him. And so when he then finally came back and was like, all right, look, I just need another 18 months. I'd had enough. And I was like, all right, what's the no bullshit of going and starting this business? And because he was like, if we lose our house. And that fear would have once upon a time, and I think with a lot of people would have just shut down and go, nope, not willing to do that. And I wanted to, like, I really, really wanted to be like, nope, not going to do that. And I reminded myself of who I married. And I was like, Lisa, what kind of wife would you be? You married someone ambitious. You knew that you're turned on by it. And so here I am, I'm turned on by it. I freaking love it. That's why I fell in love. Part of why I fell in love with it. So I married him. And now that I've got a ring on my finger, I'm going to expect him to act differently. And I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. I married someone ambitious. So knowing that, I then had to say, all right, the fear of losing my house, the fear of all these things are very real. So I don't want to just shut him down, but I have to address this fear. Otherwise, I will just shut him down. And so I went in and said, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? And I know some people say the best that can happen, the worst, but I was like, what's the worst that can happen? You're so fearful of losing your house. You were about to shut him down. So, but what is it that you're actually fearful of? Like, break it down. Okay, is it that I won't have a roof over my head and I would actually sleep in the streets? Because to me, that is the worst case scenario if you lose your house. And I said, okay, that's not going to happen. I'm very blessed. I have friends, I have family, I have savings. So well, at the time we would have lost the house, but I knew I wouldn't end up actually homeless. So I said, okay, if you know that that's not going to happen, what are you afraid of? Like, what does losing your house lead to? You lost your house. Okay, you have to downgrade. But then I go, okay, now I've asked myself, I've got the actual answer. I have to downgrade. I maybe now have to rent, right? We already stayed in a 700 square foot apartment when we first got married. So I know what it's like. I know it's doable. So I'm like, okay, so this fear of losing my house is just a fear. The worst case scenario I can live with. So I was like, cool, let's just do it. Yes, fuck it, let's put the house up. But the fear of, I obviously didn't want to lose my house. So that's what then pushed me to learn and get better. And that's when I stepped in and helped Quest build and, build it into $1 billion company. But that was almost the first moment of really breaking things down and saying, how do I not let my fear drive me? But I really do shed things and then act in accordance to the goal I'm trying to get to.
It's so good. I think it's so powerful the way that you essentially, and this is obviously my lingo, like you go toe to toe with fear. You're like, all right, fear. Like, what's the hardest punch that you can smack me with? What does that feel like? What does that look like? Could I get back up from it? Like literally that's how my mind just processed. And it's so badass because it's almost like in a way you kind of objectify fear. Like you're putting this big fear that's like, looming over you. It has all this control over you. And in that process that you just explained, you're literally putting fear, and like you're sitting in a chair, and like you're battling, you're going toe to toe with it. And I feel like it's such a powerful strategy that I really hope that everyone taking in this talk can absorb. I mean, listen, 2020 is such an interesting year. I mean, for me, it's been a mix of just more amazing than not amazing. I mean, the things that we've had to deal with as a society and all the challenges, like that's hardcore. And as a collective, you feel the energy, right? One thing that I highlight, and I know you and I have talked about this, is like a kind of buzzword through this year is uncertainty. And it's interesting to me as someone who really made friends with uncertainty decades ago, because the way that I express it, and I know that you'll appreciate this, is like I opted out of the matrix from birth, like literally. I'm a path creator.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even look down that way. Like it was just like, nope, I'm going this way. And that has definitely it's decorated my entire life with challenges. Still does, right?
Mm.
As a path creator. But so it's like I've always felt I've found a way to be comfortable in uncertainty. And that's almost felt like it's almost like the one thing that I'm certain of is that I don't know one thing for sure. And so let me and so literally this is like in my journal
In my
decades
language.
ago.
Yeah.
Right. And so, to go back to where I was, I obviously there's people who have been the masses have been navigating through tons of uncertainty and the fear that comes with uncertainty. So, what you just explained, that process, your strategy of how you take this big looming fear and like put it into this kind of almost like a bite-sized thing. You go, all right, fear, like, give me your best shot. Let's see what it is. And then I'll be real with myself to go, can I handle this? Like, how do I recover? It's so powerful. So
Thank you.
sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely, and unlike you though, I only discovered this in adulthood. So it was, I didn't have that strength or way of thinking in my 20s, and so I had to kind of do a lot of realization and I had so many assumptions built into my life that I wasn't really taking the reins of my life. And so I was always fearful of the uncertainty. Most of the time though, even though I was fearful of the uncertainty, depending on when it came down to like, well, then you're not going to reach your dream, that would then force me to lean into it. Because the thing is that if you have a goal, if you have an audacious freaking dream and you break it down and it's like, this is what it's going to take, and you don't want to do it, you're not willing to, it doesn't sound fun, amazing. Like, at least you know. And on your deathbed, you go, yeah, I chose not to go after that. Like, that honestly freaking haunts me on that. And I know people talk about their deathbed, and I use it as like the most powerful thing.
Me too.
Because I never want to have a regret. And I've known a lot of people have said this, and it's so freaking true, is that no one's on their deathbed, most people on their deathbed regretting something they did. It's usually people on their deathbed regretting something they didn't. And to me, it's like, okay, the options are, if you go for something and you fail, how do you see that as an amazing thing instead of letting it be detrimental to destroy you? And that's when it comes to perspective, right? And 2020 has been a chance for people to challenge their perspectives. And in 2021 January, it's an opportunity for people to say, okay, what was my perspective last year, and what am I going to choose? Because it is a freaking choice on how you think. It is a choice. How are you going to choose to have a different perspective? And because we built Quest, like we in 2010, we actually started 2008. That was like in the middle of the recession, right? Everyone's like, what the hell are you guys doing? No one's going to pay money for a protein bar. It's a luxury item. It's not a necessity. And we ended up building $1 billion company. Why? Perspective is everything. If you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't. Period. Like, period. If you say, I'm not going to be able to, like, everyone's listening to this in 2021. if you really tell yourself, what is that dream you want to have this year? And can I do it? If you say no, you're dead in the water. You may as well just give up on that dream now. But instead of saying no, I ask, what is it going to take to do it? What is it going to take to get there? Lay out the steps, ask yourself, am I willing to do it? And then if you are, then go forth and prosper, right? Step by step. But that's the problem with January New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
It's that people don't think of it as actionable, tangible. How am I going to continue this on a long timeline? It is like, let's say the weight thing, right? Diets, like, yeah, I'm going to exercise and I'm going to eat well. But that's so like up in the air. What are you holding on to on those days where you feel shitty and all you want is cake? Like, what are you holding on to? What is that reminder? And use it as a tool, as powerful, because you will, just like we can easily slip into 2020 was the shittiest year ever. That's a choice to think like that. And now you can say 2020 brought me to my knees. And the amazing thing is now I'm going to show how 2021 I'm getting back up. And what does getting back up actually freaking look like? Year long, right? What is that end goal? What are the steps you're going to do it? And every month, how are you going to assess if you're making those changes and those steps to it? But diet, like, right, I'm going to get healthy. Well, what does that freaking mean? You're going to eat chicken and breast and broccoli. Let me tell you, you're going to fail. If that's your like goal of, I'm going to eat healthy, so all I'm going to do is chicken, breast and broccoli, and I'm only going to have cake on my birthday. It won't work. Right? I mean,
it just doesn't work. It's so good. I feel like I'm just on the corner. The sidelines cheering you on, like, oh man, it's so true. It's so powerful. What a gift to everyone taking this in, especially at the start of the year, because it's so true. You got to go deeper. You got to get more tactical. And you know, the word that just was like ringing through my mind, and I really wanted to talk to you about, because it's honestly, I frame it as a winner's best friend. Discipline is a winner's best friend. It really allows structure. So you're not a messy thinker, feeler, and then actor. It's like, no, this is what I got to do to get to the goal. I would love for you to riff a bit about discipline, why that's important to you. How have you developed a strong relationship with discipline? Because you obviously have it. I mean, discipline is the pathway of consistency, right? They go hand in hand. And I think, you know, especially at the start of the year, I mean, listen, everyone's like, or not everybody, but like a lot of people are like, I'm motivated. And that's wonderful and beautiful. But you and I both know, Lisa, that shit doesn't last. Like, straight up, you just said it, like cake on your birthday. Yeah, you're going to fail. So what's the backup plan? I say this to the women that I coach, like, I don't want you chasing the, oh, I'm going to meditate and then I'm going to lift weights. I want you to stretch further. I want you to chase discipline. Discipline. And then the actions that require discipline, like they happen, you're consistent. But I would love your badass mindset around discipline and how it shows up in your life and how it supports you in your life.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It supports. If you see discipline as a chore, going back to like, you're never going to freaking succeed. You have to look at it of why it's going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you and why it serves you, not serves other people, not serves your friends, your kids, your husband, why it serves you. Because if you tell yourself why you're doing it, now you have going back to what are you going to hold on to in those freaking moments of weakness, of not feeling disciplined? What are you going to hold on to? Just saying, well, I told myself I'd be disciplined isn't enough. Just being motivated by listening to, let's hopefully people get motivated listening to this podcast, like how you get, guys, I wish that I could say something that could motivate you forever. It won't, because when you are by yourself, your feelings are real. How the negative thoughts are going to come in, how shitty you are. My God, I can't believe I told myself I would do this and I didn't. Like, all of that is going to come for you, whether you want it or not. So now if we can all just universally agree it's going to come for you, now I go, how do I eliminate it? So think about, oh God, this is a terrible example, but it's the first thing that came to my head. Think about a car, right? It's like, look, you put bumpers in a car, you put an airbag in just in case you crash. You have these backup things in case, because you know the reality is if you get in the car, the chances are you could crash. So I just go, if I know me, Lisa, the chances are you're going to feel shitty about yourself. Lisa, the chances are you're going to have a negative voice. Lisa, the chances are, right? So I've, with no ego, just like you can say, yeah, I put an airbag in my car. There's no emotion around it. I do the same with my life. And so I go, what are my personal airbags? I just thought that's pretty good. I was like, that's not too shabby. And so like, so what are your personal airbags? And so for me, perfect example, me and my husband used to argue over just dumb shit when we first got together, right? And it was like, and he was working so much, and so I barely saw him. And so on date night, we would get together, and by the end of it, it's like we're just fucking arguing about, and we would look back and go, I can't believe we've waited a month for date night, and now we just spent the entire day annoyed with each other, arguing over dumb shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like, we don't want that. What's our goal? Our goal is to be able to have a wonderful day where we can just hang out, just us two, and enjoy it and not argue. Okay, so how do we overcome that? If we both have a joint goal in mind, what are the things we know? Okay, once one of us gets like our little, like, what is the phrase, like a little, like a backup, like it ends up, you kind of end up going back and forth, and one little bicker ends up to be this big argument.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, what are our what is the airbags? And so Tom said, all right, babe, one thing he had noticed is that once he gets annoyed, he will keep going. And he's like, even if you've maybe apologized, or he's like, I would just stay annoyed. So what we ended up doing as a strategy, and we decided this, going back to emotionally sober, you have to come up with your plan when you're not feeling the shitty thing that could happen. So when we were emotionally sober, when we weren't in an argument, we said, all right, babe, what are we going to do? How can we overcome this? He's like, well, if you wrote me a letter, or he's like, oh, I'll write myself a letter and you can read it to me to snap out of this temporary emotional, thing that I'm in. So he wrote himself a letter, and he wrote, dear me, this is me. I know that you're probably pissed off right now, but you know yourself better. And so he writes this whole thing. He gives it to me, and he goes, babe, I give you 100% permission to read this to me the very next time we get into a little argument and we start bickering and it starts to derail. Now, what we've done is we've put in a safety net, right? We've put in that airbag. We're not saying, oh, we're never going to crash. No, we know we're going to crash. So when we do, what are the things we're going to put in place? And what ended up happening was, the very first time we had the next argument, I pulled out my phone. It was so freaking awkward, because you can imagine, I'm just like, he's freaking pissed off with me. I'm pissed off with him. And now I have to be nice and I have to read this bloody letter. But hey, we made a promise. So I pull out and I'm like, hey, me. It's me. And I think I got through the first sentence, and we both just pissed ourselves laughing so much that we were like, all right, yeah, this worked. And I never had to read him the letter again. But then it was like, okay, but what about when you're out? Maybe sometimes you don't have this bandwidth to be able to, go through this. So I got these little chips, and they said love on it. And I gave him one, and I gave myself one. And we said, what do these chips that say love mean? Like, let's give these an actual meaning. And so we wrote down, it means that no matter what we're feeling right now, I need you to know you are my number one, and I love you with every ounce of my being. So we go out to a restaurant. I've got one in my bag. He starts to get annoyed with me. I pull it out my purse. I hand it over to him. He kisses me, and we're all good. Like, those are my airbags. And I know that was all very relationship based.
Oh no, it's so good. It's so good, because it's actually, it there's things I want to talk about that, but no, it's so good. Lisa, one of the things I wanted to talk about, first of all, this is some high level shit right here. Like, but it's high level shit, like, meaning it's high level communication, high level maturity, high level emotional discipline. What I want to say as well, though, is because when you say high level, is that
That's
attainable?
why you went back to discipline. Sorry.
No. It all makes so much sense, because it is a form of discipline. You're disciplining your emotion. That's something I talk about all the time, emotional fluidity, emotional discipline. You listen, that's a through line already. Like, as a strategist in all your inquiry, like, you're disciplining your emotions to not be involved with your strategic process. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. The emotions, whether it's fear or starts to come in, and that inhibits your ability to actually keep digging deeper and deeper to get to the truth, or the actual, whatever it is, the feeling for you to be like, that's it, I'm moving forward with this, right? But what I wanted to say is, when I say this is high level shit, I also want to make sure that it's understood that while it's high level, it's not unattainable. And I don't even need to explain it. You just did. You literally just laid out tactical steps that provide this high level communication, this high level teamwork between you and Tom. So that's dope. But the other string that I want to pull on that I wanted to talk to you about, and I think is so powerful, is this emotional independence piece.
Mm.
I know in my own life, that is one of the MVPs that make me the woman that I am. You know, I don't rely on you to validate me, to make me feel good. I love it. Listen, with the way we started the podcast, all the love that you gave, like, girl, like, I love it. I'm like, it's like melting me. So I'm not saying there isn't a place for it or that it's not important, but I am saying that, you know, I believe that I cultivate that. Like I deserve that, you know, and that's not like, I just deserve it. It's like, I believe this to be true about me, and I provide that truth, and I provide the proof, the evidence, and how I show up in my life, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so when I talk about self-validation and really like loving myself, like when I speak about this out loud and to the public, like, it's not like behind the scenes, I'm over here just like feeling shitty about myself and like, no, I'm over here like rocking myself through my life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as an underdog is what I feel. And that's what keeps me fucking hungry, like underdog forever, no matter what happens. Right. And I feel with you and Tom, like, you do such a great job at, you know, doing all this high level companion teamwork action to keep your relationship thriving, in addition to making sure, and it's almost like a tool that supports that, but you both do work to keep yourself so emotionally independent. And I would love for you to riff off that too, because like just how that shows up for you in your life and why that's so important, obviously for your relationship, but really just for you moving through your life.
Yeah, God, it's been a journey for me. So I didn't actually realize I was being emotionally dependent until probably halfway through like the 8 years. I'm trying to like, it kind of all has compressed, but the time where I was at home and Tom was out working and making money or trying to make money so that we can make movies, that was kind of our plan. I'll stay at
Mhm.
home, I'll take care of everything else. You go, you earn the money, you come back, we'll then make movies together. That was the plan. But that's how I ended up slipping into the 8 years of being a housewife. So I was at home, and initially, the first year, I was like, I was driven. I knew why I was doing it. I could find pride in it. And over time, I started to realize as the years were going by, I was relying more and more on Tom to come home and not even validate me, but bring life to my life. You know, the biggest thing that I had was I either walked to the grocery store and saw how many bags I could carry back because I couldn't actually drive because of Social Security, because of my visa. And so that was the highlight of my day. How many bags can I carry from Ralph's back to the house?
Mm.
Or I'd watch e-news and hear about, you know, gossip celebrities. And so Tom would come home and I'd be like, babe, how's your day? Now, because he ended up getting into a pattern of just trying to chase money, this was before Quest, he was miserable, right? Like,
Mm.
as we all know, like,
Yeah.
how many people have to say it for it to like actually sink in? Chasing money will not bring you satisfaction.
Mm.
And so he would come home not wanting to talk. Literally, don't ask me about my day.
Mm.
And if he was in a bad mood and he said something in a weird way, and then I started to feel shitty about myself, right? Or like I'd get all dressed up and feel really good about myself. I'm going to surprise him. He comes home and he's in a bad mood. He doesn't say anything. So now I feel bad about myself and like, oh, do I not look good? And
Mm.
I started to realize how my emotional stability was absolutely relying on him.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, this is kind of dangerous.
Mm.
And over time, as Tom came home and was like, let's start Quest, I was so fearful of losing the house that I jumped in with both feet. I started to face all the things I wasn't good at, but I was just trying to help Quest, right? Like, how do I ship bars to Europe? How do I do this? And being thrown into the deep end, I didn't have the luxury of like really assessing the fears or really kind of like allowing them to stop me. And so
Mhm.
all the emotion, the instability of my emotions of, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God. Like I didn't have the luxury to listen to it and let it take over. So
Mhm.
that was actually great news.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I had to take ownership over it. I had to not allow, in both ways, right? I can't allow him to influence me to pick me up if I'm feeling down, but also I cannot allow him to influence me if he's having a shitty day and I'm having a good day.
Mm.
Like, it's super freaking dangerous on either. So owning my own emotional stability came quite early, where I was like, okay, this is on me, I have to do it. And going back to the validation thing, it is so true. And it's never just one and done. You don't just think like, oh, like I'm not going to let anyone, invalidate me. That's all on me. And now I've got it. So it is always a work in progress. It is always am I relying on someone else to give me that emotional, uplift, or am I doing it myself? And by the time this comes out, I think I would have made the announcement. But as you know, I got a book deal, and in that book deal, literally there's like a week where you just wait for publishers to come to you to tell you how much they're willing to give you a contract for.
Mm.
And this was a few weeks ago. And in that moment, before it actually happened, I said to myself, there's a danger here on both sides of the spectrum. There's a danger that, you get like 7 to 10 publishers come and they bid on you, basically. And it's like, imagine you go to a house, but you don't know how much the house is for sale.
Mm.
And so you're just like blindly bidding, right? You're just putting out a number. So with the book, I said to myself, all right, Lisa, you've spent the last 20 years talking about not making yourself being validated by other people, not allowing external things, whether people don't watch your video or do watch your video, if they like it or they don't like it. You cannot allow that to infiltrate how you feel. And so because I practiced that, right? Wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. When it came to it, before the bids came in, I literally was like, all right, this is the moment where you can allow it to either validate you or invalidate you. Because if everyone comes in low, I'm like, fuck, clearly I'm not worth much. If everyone comes in high, I don't want to think I'm the shit, because that's also dangerous.
Totally.
So I literally, in that moment, I had to do like this big breath, and I was like, all right, Lisa, what are you going to value yourself on this book? Like, it can't be the money, right? It can't be how much they offer you or the contract. So where are you going to feel value in this book? And so I just said, it's going to be the result, right? I even said to my publisher, I was like, if this becomes a New York Times bestseller and I don't change people's lives, I will see that as a failure. Just to be fucking clear, I will see that as a failure. And if this isn't a New York Times best-selling book, I would also see that as a failure. So like, but it's a like award. So even with what I'm saying, there's nuances in the contradiction of what I'm saying. And I recognize that. And I don't beat myself up for the contradiction. I just say, how am I going to feel if this happens? How am I going to feel if this happens? And how do you, Lisa, as an entity that knows your internal value, how do you make sure everything external doesn't influence? So going back to like, I really want to be a New York Times bestseller, but either way, I can't let that dictate how I feel. I really want a big deal, but either way, I can't let that dictate how I feel.
But how do you, it's so good. How do you assure yourself that you won't?
Okay. Yeah. And so with the book is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Right? Going, okay, your value right now, you're leaving it to a dollar sign. I know better than to ever allow my value within myself to be associated with a dollar sign. So if I know that's true, but I know as humans, we all want to be liked, we all want to be loved, and we all want to feel so worthy that they're going to throw on so many zeros that like my ego is just too big, right? Like I joke about it, but I recognize the truth of human,
right?
So then I go, if that's the truth, and I know that I'm going to feel probably these ways, how do I take away my value from that and put my value on something else? So that's when I said, why am I writing this book? It really is to impact people. Otherwise, why the hell am I going to spend a year of my life doing it? Like, that's a year of my life I'm never going to get back. So what am I going to hold to? Is it the money? Is it the sales? Or is it the impact it's had? And so while I'm not going to shy away from the fact that egotistically, I absolutely want a title of being the New York Times bestseller. That sounds freaking awesome. But I'm not going to allow myself to hold value if I do or don't get there. But I will absolutely put pressure on myself and hold my value to whether I bring impact to people, because you still have to do that, right? Because if I just disregard my value to anything I do, then how do you know if you're actually moving towards building your value up? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
no, it makes perfect sense. And I swear you're literally just like, you're segueing. We're so aligned. I don't know a better way to say it, because there's something I wanted to talk to you about, and it's like the perfect lead into that. So, because how my brain registers it is, and I think about my, in the past, like within my makeup career, I can draw parallels. So, for me, like, I know that I can sit here and do my very, very best, which is the only way I'm ever showing up to do anything really, right? Personal standards, which is what I want to talk to you about. I can sit here, set everything up to have the most epic conversation with you, girl, air the episode. I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah.
And I don't know after that what will take place. Like if it's a home run or if it's like, who knows? It's not within my control, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not totally in your control to, get the New York Times bestseller. What is in your control, and this is how I received it and how I also relate to it in my life, is like how you show up to do your work every single day on the way to the goal. And I
Mm-hmm.
find comfort. So like in the makeup career in the past, like I'm not always getting the job, but you know what I know to be true about me is every single time I step to a job, I'm not even on time. I'm early. Everything is crispy, clean, ready to go. I'm ready conceptually. Like I'm so prepared. Like I am prepared. I'm professional. Like, right. And so that's where I place my value in
Yeah.
my, how I show up and do my performance. And I feel like that's what you just perfectly said. It's like, it's that, because when you say like it's the impact, but the process for you to create this beautiful book that's going to be a New York Times bestseller and create that impact is literally how you're showing up every day and investing your everything to see that through.
Dude, that's so freaking strong and 100%. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is a Steve Martin quote. And it's like, be so good they can't ignore you. And the truth is I don't allow myself to have an emotion attached to it. So for instance, if the book doesn't become a New York Times bestseller, I wasn't so good. People ignored me. And so I go, cool. How do I learn from that? How do I grow from that? How do I do better if I write a next book? So while I want and I have this goal, if I don't achieve it, I don't beat myself up, but I do look at it in reality and say, okay, you weren't what you needed to be. Now, what if I showed up to be my absolute best? Like I put my heart and freaking soul into the book and it still doesn't become a New York Times bestseller. I won't let that dent my ego, but I'll still say you did everything you could. But now, what didn't you do?
Mm-hmm.
How can you get better? What is the skill that you missed in order to get this to that? Or like create impact? Like, okay, so let's say I sold 100 copies and in those 100, not one person changed their life. That's a failure on me. To ignore that that's a failure would be a disservice to my own personal growth. Like, where do I want to be in 5 years? If I really want to be the New York Times bestseller, and that's where I want to put my entire life and my energy, and I write a book and it's not amazing. Now I can learn. Now I can look and go, I wasn't so good. People ignored me. What am I going to change to get better? But it's the second you attach your value, and if it didn't, then you're crushed. Then you see yourself as a failure. Like all of this starts coming into effect. And that's where then it holds people back from progressing. So it's super nuanced, but it is all coming to the value you put on things, and the value you put on yourself. So I wouldn't think of myself as being what's the word? Oh, I think I would actually. I was like, I wouldn't see myself as a failure, but it's like I would. But I don't say it as an insult to myself. In fact, I would say, Lisa, you failed. You're not a failure. In fact, that's exactly what I would say. And you just saw in real time how I corrected myself because words matter. So I even think about what word did I just use? Oh, actually, that doesn't compute. That doesn't empower me. That doesn't make me feel good about myself. So when I think about it, I do correct myself. And so, yes, I failed. Doesn't make me a failure. What makes me a failure is if I stay on the floor. But if I can learn from it, right? If I can pick myself back up, if I can get freaking better, and I can see that, like exactly what you said, I freaking showed up to the best of my ability of where I am now in my life. I showed up in every way I can. So now if it fails, I go, okay, what skills am I missing? What have I done wrong? How do I improve so that the next time I do it, I can be where I want it to be? But people they just beat themselves up, right? And it's like, if you can just
No.
use that as a freaking driving force without detriment. And like, I know I keep saying this, but when I think about my life, that's what it all kept coming back to. I stopped because I didn't want to feel badly about myself.
Mm.
I didn't take chances because I didn't want to feel badly about myself. And in
Yeah.
doing that, I felt worse.
Right. I mean, because as you're saying all this, I'm like, there's so much freedom in this. Like, do you give yourself such a fucking break of I'm not saying it's easy. I would never take away the credit. No, it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to do this. And that's beautiful. Like, we appreciate hard, right? Because hard is what the tension is what grows us. But it does offer just an emotional break that, because what opposes this is the person who it does take it personal and then
Mm-hmm.
doesn't grow, and like that weight and then the guilt and the shame and the setbacks, and like that is just heavy. And you're like, nah, I'm good
Because
with
I've been
that.
there, girl. That's the
Yeah.
thing, because I've been there. I
Yeah.
remember what it was like to feel so shitty about yourself, to not think that you were good at anything, to want to protect your ego so badly because I was so fragile. I was
Yeah.
teased as a kid. I had the big
Mhm.
freaking wraparound head brace. I had the unibrow. I had the big frizzy hair. And so like I had this really long Greek name that had more syllables than a medical device. I mean, it was like, like I just had so many things
I love
stacked
you
against me.
so
And and so I know what it feels like. And that's why I can say with utter conviction
much. Mhm.
that it wasn't a way for me to live. And so I knew I protected my ego. I didn't want anyone to challenge me because that's all I had. And then I realized that was my biggest kryptonite.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Oh,
holding me back, right? It was taking my superpower away instead of saying, shit, how can I use my superpower? And it put going into perspective. I started to say to myself, okay, what if my superpower is the person that always gets back up, right? Instead of I'm the person that fails or I'm the person that falls on the floor, I'm the person that gets back up. That's my freaking superpower. So now imagine I keep telling myself every morning, my superpower is getting back up. When I fall, what do you think I say to myself? You're the superhero, Lisa. You can get back up, right? And I even do my hands. Like you can tell every time I try to embody something, I do this with my arms because I found that it works. And
mm,
so going to how do you self-assess? How do you do the thing? Using the word superpower, right? Like you see the superheroes behind me. I use it because it makes me feel a certain way. And I'm not saying other people should use that word. Other people may feel stupid using that word. So if you
right.
feel stupid and it doesn't work for you, don't use it. But what
Right.
word does?
Right.
Badass. I'm like the female Rocky. I'm gonna like whatever that freaking phrase is that you have to use and repeat to yourself over and over, use it. But use it. And so
It's
going to how
so
to use
good.
that.
No, it's so good. I say this often, and you're just like, oh, there's so much energy. I say this, as a writer my whole life. I'm like, words are an experience.
Yeah.
They are, and they're giving you an experience. They're giving whoever's taking them in an experience. So understand that. And I love the piece about the failure. In my team, I purposely, if something went wrong or I came up short, I purposely say I failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I and the reason why is because I'm okay with that. Like do I see myself as a failure? Absolutely not. I understand in this game of success, failure is a part of it. Like to fail at something, to come up short, to not hit the mark. So for me, there's so much power, like going back to your, concept of like really taking fear and like boiling it down and going, all right, fear, give me your best shot. If I'm comfortable with the word fail, then, I understand that when these moments happen, I'm not going to be so emotional. I'm always going to strive to be better because that's just the nature of the fucking beast right here,
Hell
but,
yeah.
but it's yeah, man, there's so much with you. Oh man. I'm like, I feel like you, I just, I love you. Okay. I love you so much. You and I literally, it's like a time warp.
It really is. Honestly, we could, I like, yeah. And even with what you're saying, I was like, oh yeah, we can riff off that.
Okay, I'm gonna reel us in. Oh God, and it won't be the last. We have so many more talks to do, and just I love you, Lisa. Okay, there's two things I'd like to do to wrap out of a conversation. Before I even go there, though, I would love to ask you: is there something that you haven't spoke about in this conversation that you wish that more people would ask you about, or that you want to live in this epic conversation? And no worries if not. Touch on
Yeah, no, not really. It really comes down to what are people struggling with. And, for me, it's always just telling my experience and what I've had to do. It doesn't mean that you should use exactly what I say if it doesn't work for you. But my message actually, like the whole foundation of it is what works for you. What are you trying to get to and how do you get there? And so I think it becomes a way of thinking. And just to kind of really put a pinpoint on the words you use, like that was one thing. I didn't realize how many negative words I was saying to myself. I can't do this, so now I just put the word yet on the end. I can't do this yet. Or I say, I choose not to. So even with language, right? Like a piano, for some reason, the piano is always a thing that I bring up, like, because I think I always wanted to learn the piano. And I'm just like, no, I choose not to learn to play the piano instead of I can't play the piano. Because what am I saying to myself? If I say I can't, it means I'm incompetent. At least that's how I perceive it. Yeah. If I say I choose not to, it means I've looked at the situation. I've looked at how much time and effort and energy it would take me to learn. And I've decided not to make that part of my life. So I'm telling myself, no, Lisa, you have the power. You've chosen not to play the piano. And so little things like that, if you think that I say that about something is, sidelined as the piano, you can imagine how much I focus on the words that I use in my everyday life when it comes to my business, when it comes to my relationship with my husband. Like we are very, words matter. Words matter. So like, even just like the other day, which I'll kind of throw this in, Tom and I had this whole discussion, and he said something in a team meeting or something. And I went to him afterwards and I was like, look, I really feel like you tried to invalidate my point when I'd said this. And he turned to me and he's like, but babe, remember, no one can invalidate you except you. And so we have an open communication that he can say that to me without me flipping my shit.
So true.
And in that moment, I stopped and I looked at him and I took a deep breath and I was like, process the words he just used. No one can invalidate you. And so I turned to him and I was like, you're absolutely right. You can't invalidate me. But I felt like what you had said was trying to invalidate that. And it was like, it's so freaking nuanced. But once I was able to break it down, it just changed the way we were having the conversation. And so he knew I wasn't almost blaming him. I took full ownership over it, but we still addressed the words that we used in that discussion. And so then it's like, well, when you use this, I feel like this. And then it's like, well, but when I say this, I mean this. Words freaking matter.
Boom. It's like, words freaking matter. I love you. Oh, and you have dropped so many powerful ones in this talk. I'm so grateful. Okay. Last couple bits in this talk. So if you had a magic wand and you could give the masses a positive habit that would have a massive ripple effect in their life, what would that habit be and why?
A positive habit. To be honest, I don't know if this is the answer, but this is the thing that changed my life. Looking at exactly how I feel with no judgment. Like if people can adopt that as a behavior, it really has allowed me to, when you say I'm queen of strategy, the difference I think is I just don't let emotion get in my way. So that is the difference. So yeah, I think that's
no. It's so powerful. It's like, it's so powerful. I think that, I mean, how many people would benefit this world if they were less judgmental on themselves in that kind of scenario? It's huge because judgment is just so easy on yourself, on others, period. So that's really good. Magic wand. Okay, everybody. All right. So the last bit are my rapid words. And so I'm going to share some words rapidly to you, and you do not need to be rapid to give me a one word back. It's just whatever comes top of mind and top of heart when you hear these words, what they mean to you. Okay. First word is
games, by the way. I thought this is I didn't need like a buzzer.
Oh, no, it's so funny when when I'm talking to athletes, like I feel the competitive. I'm like, oh, here we go. Like competition. Like it's so funny.
Like, hang on, let me get into my position. And, like putting my head down.
You
Oh,
dialed
sorry,
in or no? Here we go. Okay. First word. Love.
Tom. See how I'm like spitting it out? It's like I need the timer. I want to beat those athletes. Kerry, I'm coming for you, girl.
My cheeks are burning. Oh my goodness. I love it so much. Okay. You're so badass. Okay. Next word is fear.
Oh, overcome? I'm like, do I get another answer?
Girl, you can go off like riff. Why overcome? Like elaborate if you would like to, or keep it simple, whatever you want. Whatever feels.
Or like not an option that's not actually true because fear is always there. So yeah, overcome.
Overcome. I love it. Curiosity.
Forever.
Mm.
Like, man, let me tell you, that is exactly what keeps me going. Like, curious on this. Like, we had that as kids and we lose it. Like, how do we start being curious again? I think it's everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's so incredible to see you developing your art skills. Like you are such a badass artist. Like the other day you posted the cat.
Yeah.
It's so sick, Lisa. I mean, it's like really impressive, and I feel, as an artist, different medium, but just, creativity, like that curiosity fuels creativity. Not to mention, I feel like it's the fountain of youth. Because when we restrict our curiosity, it's like we're closed and closed. Like immediately as a beauty expert, I'm just thinking wrinkles. It's like you're tight, you're clenched. It's like curiosity keeps you open, to keep discovering and like just like what's that like? What's that like?
Yeah,
so good. Okay, next word is passion.
I was gonna say overrated. I don't know why that word came in mind. That's interesting. Oh, I do know why I thought that. I was like, why did that come to mind? I think we're putting so much focus on it that now people, like, honestly, I'm finding people stressing out. They don't know what their passion is. And because they don't know what their passion is, they're stressed out. And so it's become like, because everyone's like, well, what's your passion? What's your passion? Yeah. So I'm always very cautious about certain things on how they end up spilling over to the other side. So it's like, well, no, like what I do on a daily basis absolutely fuels my passion, and that's important. But I worry that if that's only all what I speak about, people that don't have passion start feeling badly about themselves. So so that's why I think I said overrated. Interesting.
No, it's really good though. I agree. I think it's like it's sometimes it's like that over, you know what it is? It's almost like the fish, the quote that you said about the fish, what's the water? Because sometimes people don't realize that their passion is literally like, it's so nuanced. It's the small things that happen in the day that light them up, because you're just like thinking passion has to be this big thing that's like in your face.com. I don't know what that is. Right. But like, for example, one of my passions is communicating. It's storytelling. Now, how did I know that? Like, listen, when I was a kid, funny story, just like I literally got in trouble talking in school to the point where my mom had to come sit in my class one day. I was so embarrassed, but whatever, because I would talk in school. I would communicate. Whoever that teacher is now, fuck off, because I have a podcast. So I made, my career and life out of it. You know what I'm saying? But like, but I'm saying like, it could be so easy to overlook the things that you love that light you up, that are the passion. Cause you're like thinking about this whole, like, it's my passion. So anyways, just expanding your beautiful thought.
But also let's just keep going on passion for a second.
Yeah.
People think that they should automatically have it. But the truth is, as kids, we experiment. I went to a karate class when I was a kid. I went to an art class. Like, we try things as kids, and then we're like, nah, I don't like that. Nah, I don't like that. Oh, what is this? Maybe I'll try. Maybe I'll go again. And then it starts to build. But as adults, we don't give ourselves that luxury. We just think, well, shit, what is my passion? If I'm not passionate about anything, then what am I going to do with my life? they've missed the point. Go out, try things. Try scuba diving. Try drawing with a pencil. Get a paintbrush. Take a freaking dance lesson. You're not going to know what that passion is until you've tried things. You've seen a little spark and you're like, oh, well, what's that then? Maybe I'll try it again. And that's when you start to see, is this something that I can become passionate about? And so that's why I think also it's overrated, because people start feeling guilty about it. If they don't have it, they think they were born with it. And if they don't have it, then, oh my God, my whole life, I'm not going to be passionate about anything. And everyone's always talking about passion. So what am I going to do with my life?
That's so good. That's some serious thought leadership right there, man. Oh, I love you. Okay, keep it moving. So good. Courage.
Lion.
Yeah. Just like my girls. When I hear lion, it's like me, my girls.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
the wolf pack.
Yeah, it's right. I love it. Challenge.
Oh, bring it on. And again, all about perspective. I used to run away from challenge and I realized it made me more fearful. So how do you change? What language can you use so that when you're faced with it, because you will be faced with it, when you're faced with it, you don't run away. And so by telling myself, yeah, baby, bring it on, it makes me not fear it when it comes.
So good. So true. 2 more words. One of my favorites, actually, resilience.
Oh, Roxy.
Oh, I love you. I felt that. It's so good. Thank you.
Also, I mean, we're so aligned, right? Because like,
dude,
I even have here, this is like one of my favorite hats I had made. And it says
unbreakable. Yes,
unbreakable,
so
baby.
Good.
Like,
Oh man, it's so good. I feel like I need one of those. It's really good.
I literally had it made at one of those like hat stitch stores.
I love it. Of course you did.
Because I like to remind myself, I'm unbreakable.
And I'm a beast.
I've got sexy over here.
That's my girl.
So yeah, I have like 8 of them and they all represent different parts of my personality.
That's so good. Yeah. Well, again, words are an experience and you have them put around you as like to fortify these energies about you. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Okay, my love. Final word. Also one of my favorites, excellence.
The funny thing is I was going to say unachievable. That's interesting. Like I strive for maybe it's just more perfection. I strive for excellence, but not perfection. So, because also I think, and it's actually interesting. How do you perceive the word excellence? Do you perceive it as perfection?
So for me, excellence is a process. And there's not an end goal. It's more of the process of how you are moving, how I'm moving through my life. Like when I said, the only way I want to show up is like my 100 game, and that and I'm very honest with myself. Like, did you give it your 100? You know what I mean? And like, so in that 100 is this excellence. And so, I wouldn't say that it's mastery, and I certainly wouldn't say that it's perfection. I would just say it's me firing on all cylinders to the best of my ability with who I am now, with what I know how in my current situation. And then that's going to constantly, I know that I'm forever evolving, especially because of the woman that I am and the way I drive myself in my life. Like, so this process of excellence is just going to continue to expand and to stretch me. And I love that.
Does your perception of excellence always stay the same on what it is? So like whether it's work, working out, relationships, like do you define it the same?
I think it's more about who I am, because who I am in every situation is going to be, there's like a through line, right? So who I am in my friendship to my friends and how I show up in my business, how I show up to train myself, like all of that, it's like, it's the same person.
But do you say, what does excellence look like? Like for instance, right?
Yeah.
In the gym, excellence looks like X, Y, and Z. Is that how you do it? Or like being a good friend, or being an excellent friend looks like this. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to strive for. Like, how do you actually break that down?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that there are, and we kind of touched on this, we didn't go deep, but like just having certain personal standards that I certainly have for myself, you know, and within those personal standards lives this process of excellence. So I know just in this example, like I'm showing up here and I want to be the best conversationalist in this moment that I'm possibly capable of being. All right, well, what does that take? You know, like,
Right.
right? It's like that whole what if is it taken? So, you know, did I do the work to do that today? I absolutely did. And I can feel that I did my best. I showed up in my 100. So the process was, it was an excellent process for me. And here's the thing, like if I fall short on some days and whatever that is, maybe I let a friend down. I mean, literally, I wasn't excellent. I was supposed to text our girl yesterday and I misread a text and I did it. And then this morning I was like, ah! And that was like, oh, especially our girl's a mommy and she had to adjust. And it hurt me because, you know, I am someone who prides myself on being very, you know, just like on it, you know, but I wasn't. I failed in that moment. It wasn't an excellent moment, but it teaches me like, hey, slow down because you overlooked that because you were moving too fast. And so it just, you know, there's always an opportunity to get better.
That's what I was going to say. How do you give yourself grace then in that situation? Because if you're always striving for excellence,
Mm-hmm.
you're never always going to do it, right? We know that.
Right.
Just as humans, we're never always going to get there. So in those moments where you're striving for excellence, but you don't reach it,
Yeah.
how do you give yourself grace in those moments?
I think it's like a game of averages, right? So I know that as a whole, like as an average, the results that I produce and the way that I show up is at my very best, you know? But I also understand that I'm human and that mistakes will take place. And so and I also know this, and this is just a deeper kind of level about the whole thing, but it's like, man, you know, I my intentions are so like just powerful. Like I literally have powerful, strong, high intentions and I strive to live to them every day. And as an average, I am.
Mm.
But there's times where, you know, the human in me is going to not hit that mark, you know? And it doesn't serve me to not be compassionate. Compassion for me is what keeps me fluid and what keeps me malleable. And so it's what keeps me, I know we've talked about this before, it keeps me from not being fragile. And I can just take the hit. Ooh, that didn't feel good. And allow it to fortify me, which it is, okay, well, cool. How do I learn from that? How do I get better? You know? And so that whole process is an excellent process, right? So it's definitely not this perfect hitting the mark all the time, but it's also like, when you fail, how did you fail? I mean, that goes
Exactly.
back to so many of the amazing things we talked about. Like you get back up, you learn how to get better. Like, girl,
Yeah.
we are cosmic sisters.
I know, we so are. Like, from the
It's so
very,
dumb.
very first moment I met you, I'm like, who is this freaking awesome chick? Like, I freaking love you.
I love you too. And I'm just so grateful. Listen, you know, I said this to you on the back end, but man, you have a soldier in your life who loves you, who is like when I hear about your book, like my mind is just like, how do I support her? How do I get her to that? Like, but it's like, it's primal, like it's natural for me, you know? And I just appreciate you so much. Obviously, I feel very fortunate because you're my girl. So I have that personal relationship with you. But just really, Lisa, like, man, everybody who listened to this talk or watched us, like there's no way that their vibration didn't go higher. Like there wasn't something that you said here that resonated in some powerful way to support them. So you are an absolute contributor and I'm honoring you for that. And I love you, girl. And thank you for carving out time to be
Oh,
here.
no. Girl, anytime. Thank you so much for having me. And you know, anytime we want to pick up and do another one,
I know,
do
just
it in a
keep it going.
heartbeat. Yeah.
Okay, I love you and everybody to stay tuned in to you. Instagram, best place, would you say? Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to watch videos like this, go to Women of Impact on YouTube, where I had you on the seat, on the hot seat. Go check out that episode. That was freaking fire, girl. You know I love having you on.
I love that.
And people are freaking out over that episode, by the way. It is like gone viral. It's huge. So I'm so freaking proud of that one. Go check it out, Women of Impact. And then if you just want to follow me on a personal, it's much more like behind the scenes of Lisa doing Lisa. And that's on my Instagram page. Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I love your stories. They're always so just motivating and positive and just and real, you know. It's just yeah. Everybody needs to tune into you. I love you. Thank you so
Me
much.
too.
To be continued.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, go crush it this year,
Go crush it,
2021.
21.
Boom.
Boom.